and welcome to the Fastrack DVD, our showcase of samples from the very best railway documentary programmes available today. Rather than just reading about our extensive range of Railfilms and Telerail titles, this is your chance to view some brief extracts from our programmes, giving you a real feeling of their quality and breadth of coverage. We're passionate about railways and are confident that whatever your particular railway interest, there's bound to be something here for you.
This is the story of a narrow gauge railway. It started with high hopes in Queen Victoria's reign among the mountains of Snowdonia in North Wales. But as soon as the railway opened, it went bankrupt, and from then on, everything about it was an uphill struggle. It never reached its intended goal of Caernarfon town. The traffic it was built for never really materialised. In the Great War, passenger traffic was suspended and complete closure threatened. Then, partly to relieve unemployment, the line was rebuilt and extended, with tourist business now the main target. But there was no money for anything but a very limited shoestring operation, and just 14 years later, in 1937, it closed again, this time completely, taking with it the hopes of many, along with a considerable amount of public money. With everything sold up for scrap in the Second World War, the company went into limbo, yet somehow managed to stay in existence until the heritage railway movement had become big and established enough to take it on as its greatest challenge. With much of the line now impassable, invisible, or taken over as farmland, it needed the best legal and financial brains just to re-establish the right-of-way, and that was before starting to raise millions of pounds for new track and trains. But the dream was at last achieved, and today the glories of Snowdonia can be enjoyed from a steam-worked 26-mile-long viewing platform. This is the story of how it was done. So, with the track bed reclaimed and professionally rebuilt, drainage dug and bridges enlarged, the next task was to lay the actual track, a job undertaken by the volunteers of the Welsh Highland Railway Society. The gangs rapidly became more experienced as the line progressed. Official reopening to Waenfawr took place on the 15th of September 2000 in the Millennium Year, and passenger trains were once again running on the old Welsh Highland proper, 64 years, almost to the day, since the last one ran in those far-off days of the 1930s. The next stage of reopening would take the railway out of the Gwyrfai Valley past Cwechin Lake and up onto the moorland around Treedvi, once named South Snowdon. This had been the original terminus of the old North Wales narrow gauge railway. When built, the nearest point to Snowdon summit reached by rail. The scenery up here is superb, a lure for tourists and a spur, if one was needed, to everyone involved in the rebuilding. The track bed on this stage was less overgrown and degraded than further back, but it crossed the winding river Gwyrfai 3 times in less than a mile and a half on lightly constructed girder bridges. Further up, there was a much bigger bridge over a deep ravine. Would these bridges be up to the much heavier traffic on the new line? The Railway Society was very fortunate to have in its ranks John Shreves, a specialist bridge engineer with civil engineering firm Halcrow.
The former Southern Railway train service between Waterloo and Exeter has always been one that has drawn the attention of enthusiasts. From the earliest days of steam, handsome London and South Western 440s and later streamlined Bullet Pacifics turned heads on their way west, hurrying through Hampshire, Wiltshire, Dorset and Somerset, in competition with the Great Western Railway's main line west from Paddington. In this programme, we're concerned with diesel traction, in particular the early years of the 1990s. Well-known railway photographers Roger and Christina Civita spent a lot of time in these years trackside with their 8mm sound cameras, recording Class 50's gradual replacement by Class 47s under the auspices of British Railways Network South East business sector. We'll see these trains and other trains of interest that happen to be passing on this line-side legacy from Waterloo to Exeter. On-screen captions will identify locomotives and locations, while the commentary will provide an overview and fill in some of the detail. English electric diesel traction has a historical connection with the Southern's main line to the west. Bullet-designed Pioneer Diesel Electric number 10202 was doing 2 return trips to Exeter 6 days a week, as long ago as 1951. Other early diesels, including LMS Pioneer's 10,000 and 10,001, also put in appearances. Penzance marks journey's end for railways at the southwest tip of the United Kingdom. Few termini in Britain enjoyed such a variety of diesel traction on an everyday basis. Days when rail transport was used for postal services as the obvious and efficient choice, a large proportion of activity at Penzance's harbourside location was taken up with sorting mail vans, marshalling trains for outward services, and loading and unloading mail for onward distribution around western Cornwall, and of course by steamer connections to the Isles of Scilly. To complete our look at diesels in Cornwall in the 1990s, as promised, we'll revisit Pathfinder Rail Tours, Cornish Centurion 2 Rail Tour on the 4th of May 1991. 50015 and 50008 had already managed to squeeze in the Dinnick Mill and Calm Point branches, and would have gone to Falmouth as well, were it not for late running caused by problems with 50008. The successful revival of Stapleford's 10¼ inch gauge line near Melton Mowbray in Leicestershire demonstrates just what enthusiasm can achieve. After shrugging off some 10 years of abandonment through the late 80s and early 90s, there is plenty to be proud of today. But it's worth turning the clock back to recall just how it all started. Stapleford Park's 3,200 acres was owned by brewing magnate Lord Gretton and family, who in the post-war depression of the late 1940s sought ways of increasing the estate's revenue to meet the demands of increased labour costs and a tax-hungry government. So it was that Stapleford opened its doors to the public in 1953. After turning through 180 degrees, the line descended a 1 in 80 gradient under what was then an access bridge to adjoining fields. The destination would be the estate's attractive lake, situated below the hall. This extended line opened to Lakeside in 1959, and annual passenger traffic immediately increased from 7,500 to over 21,000 passengers by 1961. The railway's expanded route had proved a winner with the visitors.
Hellyfield. We're picking Portello up at Riverledge.
Yeah.
With the film crew and dropping them off at Garsdale.
Right, okay then.
Love it, absolutely love it. What better can you want? Steaming north, fine food, fine wine, good whiskey and good company, nothing better. Fine scenery, there's no better scenery in England than the Settle Carlisle and the Eden Valley.
All the Royal Scots, which had originally been constructed with parallel boilers, were rebuilt with tapered boilers, and the complete class became BR 46100 to 46170. Here our locomotive, number 46115, Scots Guardsman, is seen shortly before withdrawal by BR in 1965.
Full details of all Railfilms and Telerail titles can be found on our extensive website, or feel free to contact us by phone